Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the final finance meeting of the year. We're going to, as always, live stream and record this and post it for everyone to see when convenient. This is the last in what's been a 6-month series of presentations on the budgeting process, which started back in December. We're aware that at this late stage in the process, there's increasing community interest in how all this works, and we certainly welcome community engagement. I will note that finance meetings have typically been very sparsely attended. We have one person in the audience today. Thank you for coming, but we would welcome more. Some of these issues are complex, and it's the view of the board and the administration that the more informed the community is, the more substantive and helpful conversations we could have along the way. For those who are interested in making themselves, availing themselves of the resources, I invite you to start with the audit report, which was publicly posted back in December. That'll give you a high-level view of the overall financial picture and also the impact of the debt, the sizable debt that Lower Merion is carrying. And from there, go through the subsequent meetings on the revenues and expenditures. And in that, you will find a tremendous amount of data, a lot of it which was gone through. I counted them up, there's 142 different cost objects that were presented over the series of those meetings. And each one of those is actually 5 data points over 5 years. So you can see there's over 700 pieces of data you can look at. And it's actually quite interesting. So you can see global trends in particular pockets, which is important as we're planning going forward. Are there anomalous one-off things, or no, these are changes that are durable that we're going to have to account for going forward. Please review all that. They're in the attachments to board docs. So you have to log into board docs, go to the agendas, and click on the attachments, but all that data is there. So, our job on the board is to look for anomalies, global trends, and because some of these are significant, and during the I'll highlight one of them here again, just as an example of that, but during the presentations, we brought in administrative experts, and we were talking about transportation. Mr. Vilsons came in and explained why some of the transportation costs are going up tremendously. There was one that we talked about here where contracted transportation is one of those cost objects that is up 50%. So a year ago it was like $3.3 million, and now it's over $5 million for the coming year. So that's a $1.7 million increase. And so the question is, well, what is driving that? And what exactly is contracted transportation? So one of the main drivers there, and what we learned is that it doesn't take a huge number of children to impact that in a huge way. So a lot of that, there are some children who IEP dictates that they need private transportation. They can't go on a traditional vehicle. So the cost of those vehicles for one child per year is $70,000. And there's an aid that typically accompanies those children, which is $180 a day. So it's $100,000 or even a little more per child per year for transportation. There used to be a couple of years ago 3 or 4 of those children. Now there's 10. So that's over $1 million there. So that has to be built into the budget and accounted for. And there are very few buckets that go down. There's many that go up, but and I invite you to review all of that. You'll also see the cost object for teacher salaries. So most of the money in the district is spent on salaries and benefits, and you will notice that although it goes up every year, the projected teacher salary cost for next year, although it's higher, is not as high as you might have predicted based on their 2.25% increase in salary through the contract. And the reasons for that is administration has been able to readjust and realign FTEs with enrollments, which are changing. And we'll get into a little more granular detail on that for folks that are interested. So I know there's a lot of interest in, it was projected that we're going to have about a $5 million negative variance between anticipated revenues and expenses. Highlighted busing, realigning FTEs as levers that we could pull to kind of bridge that gap. Although the exact numbers and magnitudes of the various levers was still emerging. That has now come into clear focus. What I'd like to do is try to present that for folks today. And if we could get, can we get those? Yeah, perfect. So I'm going to turn this over to Frank and Mr. Orlando in just a second, but I wanted to walk through a couple of these things just for the community from a parent perspective, budget perspective, try to pull out some of those cost objects and just kind of distill this down into a more focused, smaller thing that's a little easier to digest for the community. So where did this $5 million shortfall come from? So if you look at the operating budget comparison, in the 24-25 year, we had $329 million of expenses, and then just to keep everything flat, just to stay even, maintain current programming at current levels, that would have been $344 million. All right, now every year the district gets kind of what's equivalent to the COLA, cost of living adjustment for Social Security. We get the Act 1 index, which is 4%. As we discussed, we're not actually going to realize the whole 4%. It's going to be more like 3.4%. Nonetheless, that closes that $15 million gap by $10 million. So that gets us to about $5 million still short. So as foreshadowed in the April 4th and March 21st meeting, these are the levers that the administration proposes pulling. This will be in the final budget, which will be submitted and not actually voted on the board until the June meeting, not for Monday, but for June. So here are the mechanisms by which the board is proposing to bridge that $5 million gap. Now, if you want to get a lot of money, you have to go to where the money is. So where's most of our money? Most of our money is in salaries and benefits. We're going to realize hopefully about a $1.6 million gain on this. This is mostly at Lower Marion High School. So over the past, can we go to the next slide maybe? Yeah. Next slide would be.
That's it.
Nope, the next one. There we go. That's what I'm talking about. So you guys correct me if I'm wrong here, but as I understand it, looking next year at Lower Marion High School compared to a year ago, there's going to be about 250 fewer students. Therefore, the district does not have to run as many sections of some of those classes. We don't need as many teachers there. And just through attrition, that is where the $1.6 million is coming from. Now, some of the astute folks in the audience will say, yeah, okay, Ridke, but those students aren't actually out of the district. They just moved to Harridan High School. True. Harridan High School, though, can accommodate those children without having to add FTEs because Harridan was relatively overstaffed. So we're not going to be able to, that's a lever it's not going to be able to pull again, but for this year it's quite helpful. There's some administrative benefits, renegotiations on healthcare savings, pharmaceutical plans. Dr. Ranelli has some more details on that if you want. But children and families aren't going to really experience that. Though one other thing that the families are going to experience differently next year is transportation. We've talked about this twice now at prior meetings. There's two things: eliminating the second bus run. Very few, I don't think any districts have that. Very few districts have any late bus run, and they certainly don't have two. So that, coupled with eliminating the half days and the special transportation on the old way we did testing, that's going to, it's about $400,000, $410,000 for the late runs, and another $300,000 for the half days. So there's $700,000 there, and a couple other pieces that we'll get to the $5 million. So anyway, I just wanted to get that out there for the community. If there's additional questions, I know Frank can add a little bit, and then we'll turn it over to after that to Vic for the main item for today, which is the last component of the overall budgeting. It's traditionally the capital reserve transfer and capital projects, which need to be part of the budget as well. But I think at this point, I'll turn it over to
two things real quick. Shayna and Jason are online as well.
Yeah, we'll do questions. What I'd like to do is get through all of the presentations
Just could you define FTE for everybody before Frank starts?
Full-time equivalents, so full-time positions. We will, I'd like to get through all the presentations, and then we'll welcome board questions and then community questions at the end if there's still anything outstanding. So.
All right, thank you. I appreciate it, and welcome. I just wanted to go over a couple of questions that we had at our last board meeting in April about budget concerns. One of them was about a concern about reducing a librarian at Black Rock Middle School. Up to and including this year, there were 2 librarians assigned to Black Rock, one full-time in the library, and one split time, half in the library and half assigned to math. So this year, moving forward, we didn't reduce any services there. We were able to, with the number of students that we had there, have one librarian and reassign the split time librarian to deliver math instruction and special ed instruction as it should. Also, I just want to point out that it is in line with the other services that we offer at the other middle schools. So, the second question from one of the community members was about the arts and music programs at Lower Merion. I just want to go through a little bit. So, there was also an article in the school newspaper about the cuts in the program there. So our staffing adjustments were based on enrollment trends, as Dr. Ritke said, about less students at Lower Merion, student course requests, and scheduling needs, not program elimination at all. So I'll go through a couple of things real quickly so make sure everybody has the information they need. So for art, as Dr. Ritke said, there's about 243 less students at Lower Merion since December of 2023. So one art teacher at Lower Merion retired, and one current Harrison teacher is now split their schedule between the 2 high schools. Individual course enrollments were only 3 students registered for a couple of courses. So with the reduced enrollment and the course registration, the staffing adjustment was definitely justified. So for music, which was also brought up, 4 students registered for one course, 9 students registered for another course, and 0 students registered for a third course. So we were justified running the course that had the 9 students in it. So in summary, Lower Merion did not cut any arts programs. We just adjusted staffing to reflect the scheduling requests, the enrollment, to make fiscally responsible decisions. So I just wanted to make that clear.
I guess the one thing I might add on that, yeah, we can't run a class with 3 kids in it, but one thing that has happened, in particularly in the arts and some of the music courses, that there's higher level electives, level 3, 4, that may only have a couple kids. They can be run concurrently with a lower level, art 1 or 2, in the same room with the same teacher at the same time. So those are still offered. It may not be scheduled the same way it was offered the year before, but the offerings are not going away. There's no interest, I would just say, there's no interest on this board for compromising music and arts. I got through college on a music scholarship, so the last thing I'm going to do is cut music programs. None of us are interested in doing that. The value of a liberal arts education is incredibly important to all of us. The educational synergy between that and the core components is something that we are all fully behind. So
I could just add one thing. As my experience as a high school principal for 10 years, we look at the enrollment and of the course selection every year, and we make decisions on what courses should be running and shouldn't because of enrollment and fiscally responsible assignments and things like that. So this is a normal occurrence every year.
Thank you for that. And then just to talk about normal occurrences, the leveling up of kids in multiple levels in the same class is normal and typical for all schools to do as well. I know Todd and I both had kids in metal arts, and the amazing teacher teaching metal arts at Harriton and at all the schools being able to handle differentiated instruction within a course and still have the kids achieve such high things. They're really good at what they do. This is typical and normal.
all right, great. So I think Mr. Orlando, the floor is yours.
So before we get started, there was a question or a comment at the last board regarding the budget presentation, proposed final budget presentation. Just to clarify, the question was about the current revenues. So when we did the presentation, the $260 million was current revenues, was current real estate taxes, was prior to any tax increase. And we did the presentation. We showed here's prior to any tax increase, how much revenue based upon the $352 million budget. We had a increase the millage rate by the Act 1 index, which generated $10 million, which was added to the $260 million, which is the $270 million, which was the attachment. So just to clarify, it's $270 million with the proposed tax increase. So I just make that clear. since there was a comment. So today, per policy 620, on an annual basis, as part of the budget development process, the business manager or designee shall ensure that an item is included on the agenda of a finance committee meeting for the finance committee to review the current general fund commitments and reserves to determine whether they should be maintained, increased, or used for the designated authorized purposes, and any recommendations by the committee to modify the level or plan use of the committed general fund commitments and reserves shall be presented to the full board for consideration. So we are going to go over those items right now. If you go to the next slide. So our capital reserve fund, this slide here is showing what the current balance is. So it's just under $4 million at the end of April. And you can see we have 3 approved uses. I believe if you looked at yesterday's F&P meeting, Mr. Lowe went over about the bus replacements. These are buses that the board approved. We're still waiting for them to be delivered. You can see the one has been quite a while since we've been waiting for them. We anticipate having those bus replacements here before the start of the school year. The Penwind roof replacement was approved by the board last fall. That's the final portion of the roof that needs to be replaced. So you can see those items total over $3.2 million. So our estimated remaining balance as of right now is about $750,000. If you go to the next slide, in the 24-25, in our capital reserve budget, we're proposing or estimating right now about a $4 million capital reserve transfer, and you can see the items there. We have the remaining, we have $1 million towards this phase 1 of the Ballackinwood roof replacement. The remaining $3 million plus is from our capital projects fund that will be completed phase 1 this summer. The board has on Monday night an item on the purchase report to replace the HVAC unit at Marion. So that is about $400,000 or so. And then yesterday we also talked about our bus replacement program, and this is part of that system, $2.6 million. So that's the $4 million that we're estimating right now. That there would be a board item at the June meeting to approve that transfer. If you go to the next slide, so in the proposed budget that we have for next year, for 25-26, we're estimating another $4 million to be transferred in if everything works out well. And you can see we have 4 different items there. Part of the money, phase 2, and we'll go into more detail later. The $500,000, that's from the Department of Community Economic Development grant that we received for the capital improvement for the Ballackinwood Middle School roof. That $500,000 slated to be received next school year. And we have 2 other items, the Walsh Valley HVAC unit and the chiller at Gladwin that is in our capital improvement plan, and then some more additional replacement buses. And again, you can go into detail on the F&P. Mr. Lowe did it, and Mr. Vilson's did a detail as to the progression of our age of our fleet. So that's what we have right now for the 25-26 capital reserve transfer. If you go to the next slide, this was also reviewed at the April 28th meeting, the Oakwell options. So Oakwell sale, which is currently scheduled to settle in the spring of 2026. That revenue is about $12.9 million. That is incorporated, as we showed in the proposed final budget. That's the sale of an asset, and that would go in our capital projects fund. And the potential use of the funds, we have 4 different items that we talked about. One is phase 2 of the Ballackinwood Middle School roofs. That's that balance of, I think it's like $4.7 million that will come out of Oakwell to pay for that. And then we have more bus replacement programs to continue on that. The DA on high school roof projects last month at the F&P, I guess the April meeting, at the F&P meeting, the consultant went over all the assessment of the roofs and gave an assessment as to when they need to be replaced and what the priority would be. So we have that information. And then last month, the board approved to have an assessment done on the playgrounds. So that also is part of the potential uses depending upon what happens on that. So that's what what we have for the Oakwell, and that's what we presented last month at the board meeting.
I just would add that, just to clarify on this slide, the Oakwell money is not nearly enough to pay for all of those.
It is
things.
not.
Not even close.
That's
So
correct. It's not even
Don't anyone
close.
be misled by that.
Yeah, that's why we have the different options, so we'll have to choose at some point in time how the board wants to spend that money. So yes, it's well exceeds the $12.9 million by tens of millions of dollars.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say, just
Yeah.
quantified it just a bit. It is, will we be able to do some of those to like
Correct.
a 40% rate,
Yeah.
but not a 100% rate? Like,
That's
what's
correct.
Well,
I think yesterday, if I recall, I know, Jim, I think it was around $50+ million between the 5-year plan and the buses. So you're short probably $40 million for sake of argument right now, somewhere around that, if everything, works to what we believe the improvements need to be made.
I just wanted to give a shout out to yesterday's facilities and purchasing meeting. Jim Lill did an extensive overview of all the capital projects and went through, it was very interesting. It's not up yet, but the slideshow is available as an attachment to that meeting.
Good job, co-chair.
The next slide, please. So the other thing we have is our general fund commitments. So we have currently in our general fund $13.3 million reserved or committed for 2 items. One is the PEASR stabilization fund. So PEASR is the state retirement system, and currently right now the rate is 34% for the upcoming year. So, and put it in layman's term, for every dollar that we pay someone, we have to basically pay 34 cents towards that fund. Right now, it's projected by the year 34, 35 to be close to 40%. So we're trying to plan to stabilize that. I don't know what the future holds over the next almost, I guess, decade, but there's some funds there to help this board and potentially future boards and future administrations, depending upon what happens in the future. And then the other item is our other post-employment benefits under the Governmental Accounting Standard Board pronouncement 75. There's an annual actuarial validation that is done. The last one shows it's over almost $10.2 million. We'll get an updated actuarial report later this summer. Just in preference, at the end of June 3rd, 23, it was $9.8 million. So it's increased, and we anticipate it is going to continue to increase. So this is a future liability that we have. We don't have an OPEB trust fund. So this is the way to basically satisfy that by having this committed, because it is a future liability that you're committed to pay, and that keeps increasing as time keeps going on. So we recommending to keep it at this level at this time. And the next slide is just the calendar. As Mr. Ricky mentioned, we've been having several meetings, and there's more details. You can see all that. All this is posted on our website, so you can see more detailed information regarding that. So June 16th is the final board meeting of this fiscal year. So at that point in time, the school board will have to approve the budget and also adopt what the millage rate would be for the upcoming school year. And with that, I think that's the last slide.
Thanks, Vic. So I think if there's any board members either here or online with questions, let's hear those first.
I have 3. Yeah. So, one, DCD funds, was that so DCD funds are always open every single year, but not always open for everybody. So is there any opportunity to go back to the state level to ask for DCD funds for future projects?
So this program through DCD was a capital improvement grant. That was the first year that was in the budget. So this is a new program. So basically, we applied for it as 500 other school districts do, and obviously, we got a whopping $500,000, which I'm not sneezing about, but it's nice to get. But you know, we put in for the ballot cumulative roof project, which obviously is somewhere around $9–10 million. We were awarded, you know, $500,000. As we mentioned in the past, unfortunately, due to the wealth of the district, which is a major factor, you know, we didn't receive as much as in the past. I don't know, I believe in the budget for upcoming, the governor's proposing to have some money in there. I don't know to what level it is. Obviously, they're still working on their budget, and I think they might have just started doing like their hearings and so forth. So if there is money, I know Mr. Lowe and I are committed to applying for them, but we'll do the best we can.
Yeah, I mean, word in the state is that it's not going to even be close to being done till July, the state budget. Can we go for RCAP? Like RACP? RACP funds at the state level. Jim is saying no. Okay, thank you, Jim. Just wondering on like those potential state dollars that fall around. DCED is in one bucket and RCAP is in another. Got it. Could you back up a couple slides there? I think it was slide like 9 or 10. I just wanted to check the phases of the Bala Kidwood Middle School because I thought I saw them twice. And I just wanted to understand.
That there's a phase 1 and there's a phase 2.
It is, okay.
So phase 1, we already committed to, we approved it, we have the contract signed. That's roughly $4.3 million. So between the cap reserve and the cap project, we have money to cover that fund with this transfer. Then there's the phase 2, which is scheduled for the summer of '26.
And that is not a part of the 4 million, phase 2.
So there's a $500,000 will go towards phase 2.
Got it, okay.
And then the balance of it, we'll have to look at either, if the Oakwell sale comes through, that would be the balance.
Yep.
If it doesn't come through, we'll have to look at either debt service or using fund balance from a general fund to transfer in to pay for the project.
Perfect. It was just double dipped there a couple times and I don't have my slides up because the internet. So I was like, just do it one more time for me. Okay, last question. When we talk about the general fund commitments and PSERS and future benefits, how much of that money being stored away is regulated by the state or by regulations of how much you have to put away in PSERS, how much you have to put away? We're not arbitrary in making up those numbers. This is a formula that's regulated.
Well, there's no formula. So for example, like the $10 million, there's an actuarial report. So there's a report like I said, every year. There's a formal report done, there's an update every year. You have to do that under the accounting pronouncement 75. There's no way around that. So that they do all their actuarial, not actuarial, but they do all their calculations, they got the report. So we know what that liability is. The PSER stabilization fund is just money that we put aside. We say, okay, if you're at 34%, you can go to 40%. Obviously, it's not going to cover the increase is going to be, but it's monies to help stabilize 1 year for some reason, you know, to keep a program or something. So that's kind of what that purpose is. Unfortunately, we don't have much more money to put aside for it. So that, I mean, and it has dwindled down like over the years just because other priorities and legal settlements and so forth that, you know, so.
Thank you. I wanted to hear a little bit more about the process to get to that number and the limitations on it, so thanks.
Yeah, please go.
When you keep saying 40%, 40% of what?
Are you talking about the PSERS rate?
Yeah, the PSERS.
So what happens every December, the PSERS board decides what the employer contribution is. So this year it's 33.9%. They met in December, so okay, now it's going to be 34% school district for the upcoming year. So basically saying, okay, for every dollar we pay for those eligible, you have to pay 34 cents in. So they've done their actual projection, it's on their website. I just look at their website saying, okay, let me see here. So they say, okay, in the 26-27, it's going to go to 34.72, and then it's going to go to 35, and then 36. So they have their own projection based upon whatever their actuarials have done, and they're saying in 34-35, it's projected to be 39.94%. That's on their website, so they have their own actuarial study done, so that's what has happened.
Okay, appreciate that, thank you.
And just maybe before we have the community comment, just one other thing I'll say, you know, this is my second time through this, so I'm getting more familiar, more comfortable with the different pockets, but, you know, this couple $1 million for busing, this is kind of a regular thing. So we have 135 buses, average bus last 10 years or something, so we're turning over 10%. 10, 12 buses a year. Bus is $175,000. So we need to plan on a couple $1 million a year, probably forever for busing. So that's one thing. And then the other thing, which nobody likes to talk about, I feel like I'm the only one, like, okay, cue eye roll from the other board members, but the debt that the district is carrying around, I mean, we're talking about $1 million here, a $5 million shortfall, but guys, we spent over $30 million in debt service last year. If we weren't doing that, all these problems go away, and we probably wouldn't even have to take the Act 1, the whole thing. We could build the playgrounds, all of that. So, Dr. Anelli came from a district that had very similar, like I think about 1,000 fewer students than us, but similar size, ran it on half the budget. It was a well-oiled machine. It was a good district with zero debt. So just because a lot of school districts run on debt doesn't mean you have to do it. I don't mind paying taxes. I don't mind spending money as long as it's spent well. I hate the debt though. I'm a debt hawk. So as much as we can do to lighten that anchor going forward, it's going to come back and pay us in spades. So anyway.
I wanted to echo your comments, Todd, because I'm also a debt hawk. I'm just curious, can we make any principal payments to our debt?
We are.
We do?
Yeah, we
And we
do.
still have 30?
Oh, no, so when I started, correct me if I'm wrong, I think it was $220 million of debt. Then it was 200. I think we're down to 180 or something at the moment. So we're getting there. And,
Yeah,
and assuming we take on, correct me if I'm wrong, but see, I've learned, right? So assuming we don't take on any new debt, which we probably will, but if we weren't, we would discharge all this over about probably 9 years from now. The problem is these roofs, which we have to have, the buses, which we have to have, playgrounds, which we really like to have, that money's not there. So we're probably, as these debt buckets fall off, in all likelihood, we're going to reload them, at least partially. I'm going to try to minimize that because it's a huge problem. But it has come down.
So basically what happens, we pay principal and interest, per the different bonds that have been issued and been structured, working with public financial management. So we pay both principal and interest. It's going more towards the principal. Obviously, as our debt keeps going down, we're paying more towards principal and less towards interest.
Yeah, you'll see that in the auditor's report. So I think out of the 30 million plus that was spent last year, about 20 million of it was principal and about 10 million plus was interest.
Right, I mean, I recognize that, but I was just curious if there's a way that we can put even more on the principal, or are we just bound to the bond?
If we were in school board, finance fantasy land, and we had a little finance fairy that could, but given the money we had, no.
Yeah, no, there's schedules in there when you have to make the payments, because those payments then go to the bond holders.
Right.
Unless we would refinance some of the bonds, and right now the market's just not conducive to that. There's different other variables in there. I'm going to hold details of, there's a lot of other factors that come into play.
Thank you.
And again, just to clarify, none of us are rolling our eyes at Todd with the debt conversation. We enjoy it. We've been talking about it for years, but I think what's also, just to echo, what's really important to bring that up is that when we look, what facilities did a great job this week, and we need to continue these conversations, when we look at a capital project plan of 5 to 10 years and say, where are we now, where are we in the future, and how are we gonna pay for this? We have to look at the impact that the debt has on us today and to stifle us to say, are these the right choices we want to make as a district and as a whole community? So yet another reason to echo it now, because as we look at this, we have choices to make and we have to do it as a full community, but there is a burden to that debt that does not make you nimble and does not make you move quickly. So thank you for all of this. It's all really helpful. And Todd, we love your focus on debt, like other people have always been focused on debt, but also Shayna and Jason are online, so let's not forget about that.
Right, so Jason and Shayna, any questions, comments?
I didn't have any questions. I just wanted to, like Mel said, reiterate that we had a really good discussion in facilities, and we also talked about, in terms of long-term capital planning, redoing the track and field between Kinwood and Bala-Kinwood as one of our capital projects priorities. And so that was sort of reinstated as something that the facilities team was going to start working on and put in. I just wanted to put the bee in everybody's bonnet that would be an upcoming expenditure as well.
Great, thank you. Jason, anything to add to this discussion today?
No, nothing else to add. I appreciate the explanation and the additional comments. So thank you.
Great. Mr. Lester, do you have anything you want to add? Saw you at the podium earlier, so.
Make my public comment.
Yeah, sure.
So, hi, Rich Lester, Villanova resident. First, I'd like to thank you for the transparency in what you presented today. It was much improved and much more detail than at the board meeting. So hopefully that transparency continues. And Todd, you mentioned that all the detail is available. I would argue that most people aren't going to go through the detail. So this type of presentation where you're walking through the major buckets of changes and cuts, I think is what the community should expect. The one piece that I feel like you should think about is when you're presenting these 7 or 8 categories that you've cut is what led to those decisions? What's the framework that you use to make those choices versus why didn't we cut legal fees by a certain amount, or why didn't we make other choices? So explaining the framework of how you make the decisions, I think will then make these decisions more clear. So for example, you talked about, I think, $800,000 of curriculum savings and a couple of $100,000 of behavioral support or mental health savings. Like, are those less important choices than other things? So like a framework is really useful for how the decisions are made. And then finally, I liked the discussion about the debt payments and the debt piece, but I'd also say you should remind the community that we have 2 beautiful high schools and a middle school that were paid for, and that's why we have the debt. And so framing, while debt does constrain decisions that we make, we also have to make investments in the schools, and sometimes we have to make huge investments. And hopefully most people don't think that those were bad decisions. I think they were pretty good decisions at those times. So reminding people of that, that we do have a debt burden, but there were some good things that came of that debt. So those are my comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Frank, do you want to follow up on any of that or bring us home? Oh, do we have more community comments? Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, please.
I just want to say, Dr. Ranelli, the curriculum meeting and now today is the direction we need to go. I could not sit still. How you addressed the community's concerns and brought transparency to address misinformation in our community was done excellent. And I hope that you could continue to help guide that transparency in all of our committee meetings, especially when you broke down the enrollment trends and how decisions are made, that teachers were not let go, they were transitioned when you guys look at all that. So I just want to say thank you.
Well, no, I appreciate that, but I owe it all to the people in this room.
Yes,
It has nothing to
everybody,
do with me.
seriously, thank you. This is the great details, the board, everything, kudos.
Ms. Rivera, can you state where you live in the district?
Oh, my word, yes. I was just so excited from today's meeting. Jen Rivera, Balakinwood. Sorry about that.
Thank you very much. So just to follow up on Mr. Lester's this question about how decisions are made, there's a lot of factors that go into that, right? Enrollment trends. You talked about the behavioral services, and it had nothing to do with wellness of the students there. Just want to make that very clear to the community. So that particular one, right? We could get into longer conversations about how all this are made, but just particularly, just to give you an example. So we contracted with services outside the district that helped staff members build capacity to deal with some things they needed to do within the schools and to really support the students. We felt that those contracted services really came to fruition, and our staff members were very capable of doing that themselves now. So that was one of the things. A lot of the things have to do with enrollments. A lot of things have to do with services that are offered that can be tackled another way. So there's a lot of things that go into it, but I appreciate the questions.
I think the other thing, we talked about this, and so the board doesn't drive this. This is driven by the administration. The administration looks, we aren't the ones who are, knowing what's going on. So nor should we, that's not our job. So the administration looks across through every bucket to try to close the gaps with as minimal impact as possible. So we didn't take $5 million out of one bucket. It was spread, the best we could. The curriculum, and I did ask about that because that there isn't a specific bucket for curriculum, so that is something that's hard to pull out on your own. That's spread over several things, but that $800,000, as I understand it, for the past several years, the curriculum group team has not actually utilized all the money that has been budgeted to them. So this is actually just brings it closer in lines. We're not actually taking money.
I can comment on something like that as well. So
please,
again, just to give the public another piece of information, right? We didn't actually cut the budget $870,000 for curriculum. It actually is a 12% increase that they achieved for the budget. It just was part of that formula that didn't get us that extra $5 million from the first two slides that you presented. So, reductions like in-person virtual conferences instead of in-person conferences. Furniture, not sorry. This year's purchases, we were able to purchase some things this year from some unrealized money that we had, particularly like my salary, things like that, like things that we didn't spend for most of the year. We're able to budget some things and purchase them now. We deferred some instrument replacements that we're going to need. We delayed some purchases for things that we could actually stretch out for one more year. So there's a lot of things that we come together and put our heads together where it's not just, okay, well, you're going to lose it and programs are going to be cut or kids are going to suffer. None of these situations, kids are even going to realize that these things went away.
Thank you. Just a real quick comment on that, just to echo Todd's point, the role of the board, the role of the administration, and this is a really helpful example of it, is the best recommendation of the team to come forward. I also just want to point out to Scott, also communicated some of these things in committee meetings. And I think it's really important that we echo the power of a committee meeting. This feels really collaboratory. The policy meeting was like a rock star this week. Curriculum was a rock star. Facilities was a rock star. This is the open dialogue that can happen in the structure of a committee meeting because it follows the role of responsibilities of a committee meeting, open dialogue with the community. Not everybody can get there, so we also encourage people, watch the programs. If you don't understand it, it's okay. We ask a million questions too. You can always email the committee chairs. I think that's the best way to go about this. And you can also always email our superintendent or community comments. The information will get back to you. But the committee meetings have this much more open dialogue. The board meetings are business meetings and they're less about conversation. So it does, it's the same room, it's the same setup, feels weird. Just want to echo it, but great transparency and along the way, great transparency. And I'm just going to again shout out to all the chairs. All of you have done such a good job in the last year saying this is what we talked about last time, because we know people don't go to all of them and because you don't have time and we understand that. And it's our job to keep it clear. This is the summary and this is the follow-up. So great job on the chairs. Kudos.
Thanks. Mel, do you have another comment, I think?
Yeah, I just want to make clarification too that the administration does a fabulous job in these projects, but they also don't do it by themselves. They work closely with each building principals and the leaders of the thing to work, who then work within their building to ensure that that do things that aren't affecting the students, but the cuts are made where there's a least effect and like attrition and those type of things. Yeah. So I just wanted to clarify that as well.
I think we have some online comments.
We do. The first is from Jamie Bassman of Ardmore. Apologies if I missed this, but please clarify the item regarding $250,000 in contracted behavior support savings. Is this a shift from contracting via the IU to employing behaviorists instead? Or does this mean few to no BCBAs? Will any be hired as employees? This is an extremely troubling development if you are saying you are essentially eliminating behavior consultants. Should I keep going, or do you want to refer? Okay. Okay. Michelle McGill of Bala-Cynwyd, I am so pleased to see the board working collaboratively with the superintendent. This is amazing to watch, such wonderful transparency. And those are the only two comments.
All right, Frank, you want to bring us home?
Yeah, so I want to, and I appreciate it. First of all, I want to thank Mr. Orlando and his team, also the administrators, central administrators here. Everybody put their heads together to really come to these presentations and these numbers and things like that, so I appreciate it. I know it was a pain to you this week, but I apologize. So I want to end the meeting with celebrating our district a little bit, and today I want to highlight that our district was just named the best community for music education for the 15th year in a row by a company called, an organization called the National Association for Music Merchants. They, again, 15th year in a row, it's incredible. So they judge the support and commitment to music education, and they want to assure that all students have access to rich and vibrant music education. And again, it was our 15th year in a row, and I want to thank the district for their commitment, number one, and all of our educators for doing that for our kids. So, and on a good note.
And the concerts are free. You should all go, and they're really good.
All right, one more. Harrison High School had 6 National Merit Scholarships.
For Ballackinwood Middle School is having a spring band concert, an orchestra concert that's going to be fantastic. So if you're not going to be at the board meeting, you should come to Ballackinwood Middle School and watch some of our music education at work.
Amy, you want to say it again? It was good.
I'll say it a million times. Harrison High School had 6 National Merit Scholarships awarded.
So in the interest of transparency, I just want to make sure that we follow up on that question we had from the one community member. So we're not cutting BCBAs. The supports were for, again, the contracted supports were for staff members to address some situations with regular education students, so it has nothing to do with special education. We want to make sure we really highlight that commitment from all of us to do that. So.
Thank you.
One more community comment from Juanita Kerber of Ardmore. Thank you to our board and Dr. Ranelli for all of your hard efforts.
Happy Friday. Good weekend.